Hello, boys and girls. It's Mrs. Jacobson here. I'm going to be reading a book that's titled Redwoods by Jason Chin. So I'm excited to read this book and find out more information about the redwoods. The coast redwoods are among the oldest trees in the world. Their ancestors lived about 165 million years ago during the Jurassic period. Ancestors are usually people that have lived before us, but in this case, it means that it are the trees that lived before the trees that are currently living right now in the redwood forest. One tree can live for more than 2,000 years, which means there are trees alive today that first sprouted during the Roman Empire. The redwoods have shallow root systems that travel more than 100 feet from the tree. They help the trees stand, and they need all the help they can get. Because, let's find out why. Because they are the tallest living things on the planet. Redwoods regularly grow to be more than 200 feet tall. Boys and girls, that is an impressive fact about the redwood trees. Maybe some of you have been to see the redwood trees. It's on my bucket list. Someday I will eventually get there. A redwood trunk can be 29 feet in diameter and its base. So diameter means the distance around the outside from one point all the way back around to the starting point. And the base of it is where the tree trunk meets the ground or the soil. Amazingly, such a tall tree starts from a seed about the size of a tomato seed. A 1-inch long cone that houses the seed falls to the ground. And if the conditions are right, the tree will sprout. With enough light and water, a redwood sapling can grow fast, up to 2 feet per year. So boys and girls, you can see a picture of a sapling right there, which is basically a new tree. Redwoods also grow from other redwoods. When a tree falls or is cut down, new trees can sprout from big round masses along its trunk, called burls. So boys and girls, you can see right here, there are new trees that are growing, and they're called burls. Often several trees will grow from the burls on one stump. If you see a ring of redwoods in the forest, they probably all sprouted from the same stump. One reason that redwoods are able to live for so long and grow to be so tall is that they are very good at defending themselves. Their wood contains a lot of tannin, a chemical that protects them from fungal infections and insect infestations. Redwoods are also well suited to live through fire. So boys and girls, fungal infections are something that makes the tree sick, and typically it's something that grows on the outside of the tree that makes it sick. In this case, infestations mean that the tree can be taken over by insects, and that can also make the tree sick too. So fungal infections and insect infestations can make the trees die. If there is a fire, their extremely thick bark shields them from the heat, just like the heat-resistant tiles on a space shuttle. Their branches don't start until very high up, 200 feet in some cases, which also helps protect them from fire, since most fires can't reach their needles, because the needles are usually what fuels the fire, keeps it burning, and keeps it going. But in this case, their needles are much higher above. Even if a fire penetrates a redwood's bark, meaning goes inside of the tree, and you can see that right here, the tree can still live. In some cases, a huge portion, meaning part of the tree, So a portion of the center of the trunk has been burned out, but the tree keeps on growing. In many ways, fires actually help redwoods by clearing out other plants that would otherwise compete for resources like water and soil. So sometimes the fires actually help the big redwood trees because the redwoods need resources like water and soil to survive. And so do other trees. So when the other trees aren't there, then the redwood gets all of the resources. Coast redwoods need a lot of water to grow as tall as they do. And the area in Northern California where they live is perfect. It's a rainforest. The air is cool and damp, and the land is often covered in thick fog. It takes a long time for water to travel all the way from the roots to the top of the redwood. And the fog helps the trees by preventing them from losing moisture to evaporation. So evaporation, boys, is when liquid turns into a gas. In addition, the needles of a redwood can absorb moisture straight from the air. So that means absorb means to take in. In the summer, when there is much less rainfall, redwoods have an ingenious way of collecting water. Ingenious means clever. They make their own rain. When the fog rolls in, it condenses on the redwood's needles, and whatever moisture isn't absorbent, meaning taken in, then falls to the ground to be soaked up by the tree's roots, because the roots is where it drinks its water from the soil. So boys and girls, when it talks about condenses here, condensation is where the gas turns into a liquid. So it is now the opposite of what evaporation is. Continuing on here, other plants that live at the base of a redwood tree use this artificial rain as well. So not only do the redwoods water themselves, they water all the plants around them. So artificial rain in this case means that it wasn't rain that came from the sky. It was actually water that came from the redwoods, the water that was condensing on its needles. The branches of a redwood are called the crown or canopy and start very high up the trunk. So crown and canopy are synonyms. They mean basically the same thing. It's where the tops of the trees all meet. To study redwood crowns, scientists have to climb into them. And this is not easy because the trees are so tall. Researchers use a bow and arrow to launch a rope over the branches. When the rope is secure, they can pull themselves up. It is very dangerous work. So you can see that here. When the needles fall off of a redwood, they decay and turn to soil. And redwoods are so big that this soil often collects in the trees themselves. So decay means to break down. Soil that collects in the branches of a tree or in crevices on its trunk provides a home for other plants. So boys and girls, you can see there's a crevice right here, and it's like a crease in the tree. Plants that grow on redwoods are called epiphytes. The most common epiphytes found in redwoods are ferns. So you can see there's a fern growing out of this crevice. In one tree, researchers found a mass of ferns weighing more than 1,600 pounds. That's easier than a full-grown polar bear. Wow, these trees are so large. I bet they are just fascinating in person. Maybe you know someone that's been there too, even if you haven't been there. Ferns are not the only plants that make their homes in redwoods. Mosses, fungi, bushes, and even trees grow in the redwood canopy. Researchers have found a wide variety of trees high above the ground, including hemlocks, spruces, firs, oaks, and California bays. In one redwood, researchers found a California bay tree growing out of a knothole over 300 feet from the ground. So boys and girls, the knotholes are what you see right here. It's where an older branch or tree has broken off or been cut off. In addition to plant life, scientists have found many animals living in the redwood canopy, including flying squirrels, beetles, earthworms, centipedes, spiders, salamanders, and yellow banana slugs. Some animals, like red tree voles, live their whole lives in the treetops and never see the ground. So there's lots of animals, like these animals right here, that live in the redwood. Many birds live in the tops of redwoods, including bald eagles, ospreys, and woodpeckers. The marbled murrelet and the northern spotted owl live almost exclusively in the oldest redwood trees and are both endangered species. So exclusively means this is the only place. And then endangered means that the animals are dying out and we have to protect them. And species is just basically the type of animal. So an endangered species. When a redwood is injured, the tree will often sprout new trunks that look like miniature versions of the tree itself. If a branch is damaged, a new trunk will grow straight up from the top of the damaged branch. Sometimes more than one new trunk will sprout. Researchers found one tree with more than 200 reiterated trunks in it. There was a forest of redwoods growing atop a single tree. So reiterated can mean to repeat, but reiterated in this case means to continue to grow on top of one after another. The crown of a redwood can be very complex, which means that it's complicated. As the tree grows, its main branches and the branches of its new trunks crisscross and run into each other, forming a maze of growth. The crown can become so dense that from its interior you can't see the ground or the sky. Interior means from inside. Researchers have even gotten lost while exploring the crown. The largest of all redwoods are in a class or category of their own called titans. For a long time, the record holder for the tallest trees in the world was Stratosphere Giant, measuring a whopping 370 feet. But that record was broken in the summer of 2006 when researchers discovered Hyperion, a giant coast redwood rising 379.1 feet from the ground, and it's still growing. Boys and girls, you can see a flying squirrel here. They do not have wings. They have skin that's extended out from their sides that they use as their wings. That's 6 stories taller than the Statue of Liberty. So boys and girls, you can see the Statue of Liberty and the redwood trees. It's also taller than a 30-story skyscraper. So this is a skyscraper, and you can see those in big cities. So you can see the comparison of how big the trees actually are. So it's so tall that if it were introduced to a city skyline, it would fit right in. So a skyline is where the tops of the buildings are. And then remember the canopy or the crown in the forest is the tops of the trees. So let's see. We see the little girl walking here and the little boy sitting on the bench. And he looks like he's looking at his watch like he's going to be late. He accidentally forgets his book. And the little girl picks it up as she's curious to see what is this book about. And then the little girl, she's in the redwood trees, learning about those as well. You can see the little flying squirrel just might help her out. Boys and girls, we are not going to read this last page, but this last page is about redwoods in danger. And so it's important for us to preserve the redwood forest as much as we can. So the more we learn about it, the better we can keep it safe. So, boys and girls, I hope that you enjoyed listening to the book called The Redwoods by Jason Chin.